In order, the first item is to read the notice of the special meeting. Amanda?
This special meeting of the Board of Education, Parsons District Schools, USD 503, was called to take action to suspend public comment until further notice, to take action on the continuous learning plan, to take action on the resolution of the board regarding wage payments during emergency school closings, and to take action on HVAC unit for Garfield Elementary. Notice of this meeting was sent to Caleb Reed, Parsons Sun Radio Station KLKC, and Parsons Recreation Commission.
Thank you. 3.0 is adoption of the agenda. Need a motion, please? We can't amend it, so we just need to adopt as is.
Move to approve the agenda.
Motion by Joanne,
Second.
second by David. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Item 4.0 is action to suspend public comment until further notice. Because of the COVID-19, we cannot have more than 10 people in a meeting, and so the best option is to suspend any public comment. If anybody would want to make comments, they can contact Ms. Ray, and then it can be relayed to us at the next meeting. So I would entertain a motion at this time to suspend public comment until further notice.
So moved.
Motion by Jeff,
Second.
second by David. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. 4.1 is action on the continuous learning plan, which we all received earlier this afternoon.
Hot off the press.
I would entertain any discussion, any questions for Ms. Ray or Mr. Farrell.
So what you received was the waiver application packet, which is a little bit different than the day-to-day continuous learning plan. All those details are things that the buildings are working on in regard to times and schedules. It will begin on Monday. Our continuous learning plan will roll out on Monday. And so from 11 until 1 at each of our buildings, parents can pick up their paper packets if they've elected to take a paper packet with their lunch. They'll also be returning library books at the elementary level that day and then collecting their supplies. They're already all bagged and labeled, and those will be taken to them when they're given their learning packet and their lunch that day. So there is an online component as well, and so it's on our webpage. You can go and look, and it'll say under news, it says continuous learning plans, and a person can click on that and click on the grade level, and it's going to take you to the material that's been pre-recorded and uploaded and those different activities for parents to do with kids. So all of the planning that they did all week was based on this 76-page document that is kind of dog-eared because I've actually read it and looked through it. And so just a reminder for folks that, pre-K, they're recommending 30 minutes a day. So school is not going to look the same. I mean, it's at home, which is different, but 30 minutes a day for pre-K. K1, they're recommending 45 minutes a day. Second through fourth grade, an hour a day. Fifth and sixth grade, 90 minutes. And then 7th through 12th grade, 3 hours. So for parents at home, that the work that they receive, that right there should be a guide regarding how many hours a day. So we want for parents to participate and kids to participate in this plan, but we do not want to add any additional stress or burden to an already kind of stressful situation for some folks. So.
Will there be another time that they can pick up their package if they can't get it, if they're working parents that work between 11 and 1 on Monday?
There will be, if they let the administrator know, and parents, teachers and staff have talked to them, and so those arrangements have been made. And what we may have to do, we talked about that in an admin meeting today, what we may have to do, because we know we're going to plan, and then we have to pivot. And that's just the way it's going to work. And we're going to show each other grace, and our parents and our staff and ourselves, because you're right, Olivia, we thought of that this morning. So they checked with folks, but the following week, we may see, okay, what do they say? Do they need a time from 2 to 4? Does somebody need a time from 7 to 9? We're going to have to just constantly engage our parents and our community to see what they need. And it may be different in each of the buildings, and that's okay too. So we've got folks that will be responsive to that. But yeah, that's a good question.
There was a call-in time too, wasn't there?
There
That they can
is,
call and.
yeah, each of the buildings is open beginning on Monday from 10 to 1. There'll be somebody there answering the phones, so they can call in and ask questions anytime there. Teachers will have office hours, so they'll have hours that they're available for kids to contact. They'll have hours that they are teaching Zoom classes or teaching classes in Google Classroom and communicating that way as well, so,
I have some questions.
okay.
First of all, I appreciate the time and effort that all the staff members put in to put this together. Looks really good, actually. But these are clarification questions.
Uh-huh.
On page 5, towards the bottom, it says there's tech support available for families and teachers.
Oh, good
And
question.
then it says that the technology integration specialist for the district has provided multiple tutorials and quick guides for each of our platforms. Now, where are those located?
And so that's a good question. Those will be located on our webpage. When you go to news, it'll be right there. With the continuous learning plan, they'll be able to click on it right there as well, so.
Just a little problem. When I use that Parsons app,
Uh-huh,
and it says go to parsonsUSD503.org, it says page not found. So there's a little glitch in this.
okay, well, I'll have to check.
Make note of that.
I'm gonna have to take note of that because
All right.
I'll have to,
Okay.
We'll check on it. Yeah, we
That may
need
be
that.
mine, I don't know, I'm just
oh,
saying.
but it could be, who knows? I mean, right now, a lot of things are happening, so.
All right, on
I can-
page 6, it talks about special education and working with each of the students. Now, it's my understanding that teachers are advised not to work one-on-one with any students on Zoom.
That's, so 503 teachers, what we have done is since it would be an individual, we are recommending that they not work individually on Zoom
Right.
with the student. However, Tri-County will have a teacher and a para, there will be 2 adults, and so they'll be able to.
Now, I was
provide
also
that.
told that the counselors can work one-on-one with the student.
If they have written permission from a
Right.
parent prior to
Okay.
that.
I just want to clarify that.
Right, because a lot of our kids that may have been seeing the counselor, the counselor may call and check on them and those kinds of things, and they've been encouraged to do that and to continue as long as that's okay with moms and dads.
And also on that page, it says area businesses are providing internet. Is there a list?
So right now, Wave Wireless has their parking lot, and so you can go and get wireless there. What our tech people have just worked an incredible amount this week too. In each of our buildings, with the exception of Guthridge, just because the way it's laid out, there are additional spots where parents can go and get Wi-Fi. So I have a set of maps that we will put on the webpage and that we'll figure out some way to print for parents to see of each of the buildings. And it will actually be painted on the concrete. So here's Garfield, and there, where it's painted in blue, a parent or someone could come up and get free Wi-Fi. They'd be able to get Wi-Fi staying in their cars. You have to stay in your car. That's the key. There's a spot at Lincoln. There are quite a few spots behind the middle school, all of those spots where parents could drive, stay in your car, and get Wi-Fi. And at the high school as well. And the really cool thing is now it's on school buses.
Well, hopefully the Parsons Son will pick some of that information up.
I hope so. I shared that with Colleen when I visited with her this afternoon.
All right,
So,
on page 7, it talks about the team utilizing choice boards. What's a choice board?
okay, so a choice board is like a tic-tac-toe board, basically, and in each of those spots, there's a choice. So then a student would be able to decide, oh, I'd like to do this project, or, oh, I need to do this. And it'll all, or this, the CTE stuff, it'll all be based on the competencies that they need to have accomplished in CTE. So that way they've got some choice.
All right,
in this.
regarding graduation, there's some districts, like Olathe, for example, that's already planned for July. I don't know where they got all the foresight, but is that a thought about, for our district to think ahead? And then maybe we'd have to change those plans, but at least they're setting that up so that if things open up a little bit, at least the general public will have an idea of when and where and maybe not how yet.
Yeah, and I know they've talked about graduation, the actual ceremony itself, and had decided just to postpone instead of cancel that. We don't want to say we're not going to have one, but someone up there must have a crystal ball, because I don't know what it's going to look like in July. You're right. We would like to do it before everyone went off to college next fall, but I don't think there's any way to predict at this point in time when that might be.
I'd like to know why they did that.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to find out.
It would
That's
be, I
just-
don't know
Just
how
my
they
2
would,
cents.
yeah.
All right, page 8, where are the central locations for the social emotional needs?
Okay, so our mental health liaison has worked on a page this week, a web page that will be attached that has all of those resources in it. So that when a parent goes and looks and it says, I'm dropping the pen. When it says continuous learning plans, then it has maps for Wi-Fi, then it'll say social emotional supports, and they can click on that and it will give you the entire list. They also have some things that they've run on paper so that they can put those resources in paper packets. We've also pushed a lot of that stuff out on Aptigee, so it's like on Facebook, Twitter, text, those kinds of things.
Again, I think our staff has done a great job.
They have,
My only
thank you.
concern is sometimes the general public doesn't understand education needs when we start talking about dojo and energy and terms like that. We need to be
Yeah,
a
and-
little more plain English.
And best
Right, and-
acronyms.
Right, and that's why the parents parents are gonna know what dojo is if that's something in 2nd through 5th grade that they use. So the general public that's just a communication tool and device, and so we've just called those our platforms, but there are a variety of things to,
Well, and like you said, I mean, each of them can call the teacher, and sometimes if you get, somebody can, if you're on the site, sometimes, like when I've called, just help with anything, like say DirecTV or something, they can walk you through it.
Right.
And if they've got the screen up. And so I think, the teachers will be really open for parents, calling and say, help me with this.
how do I do this exactly? I
Yeah,
don't-
and sometimes they'll have to maybe have a step-by-step thing.
Right.
Typed up, written down,
Yeah.
but I'm sure you'll face all of that this week.
I think there will be so many things. I just think in the last 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, how much things have changed. Education has always been the same for 100-plus years, and now it looks very different. At least for us in,
So is our Zoom bomb-proof?
well, we have an institutional license or an education, we have a company license. And so when our Zooms are sent out, they're sent out with a private number that it's that's not sent out where everyone gets the same number. So they're enabled so that you have to have this access code to get in, and then they're set up so that all of our teachers, when they have Zoom meetings, they've enabled the waiting room, which means you have to have a code to get in, here's the waiting room, and so the teacher can identify everyone that's in the waiting room and clicks. This person can get in, I'm not letting Jeff in today. They can go down the list and do it that way, okay? So if they see a name, for example, the high school was having a faculty meeting yesterday, was it yesterday? Anyway, they all run together. And all of a sudden, on one of the things, it showed up student. And immediately, Mr. Wiles was like, wait, this says student. And then it just didn't take but 2 seconds, Jordan Swanson, he said, I'm just on a student computer. It is, because he was in here. But we do have those waiting rooms enabled.
And the same is true for Google Classroom, I'm assuming?
So, and Google Classroom is not anything that's ever put out or public for anyone to get in. That's private through email only.
I'm playing devil's
Yeah,
advocate.
well, those are good questions, because it's all so new and people don't know.
Exactly.
And we've just learned a lot about Zoom in the last.
Well, and there are no, like we always tell our kids, there are no stupid questions.
No.
So you need to we need to encourage our parents to call in and ask
And just ask.
whatever they don't
Yeah,
understand.
and because there'll be things that we don't know either. We'll have to say, I don't know, I'm gonna have to check on that and get back with you. I'm gonna have to, and we've thought about some of those tech things. Maybe if we're getting a lot of the same or consistent questions, then maybe we need to put together a little, frequently asked questions section and put that somewhere, and, those are things that,
And just for the general public, I think the Kansas Association of School Boards, when we had that Zoom meeting statewide, was one of the most powerful meetings I've ever seen that was done via the internet. There were a lot of powerful information for school board members,
it was good.
and I think Randy Watson's doing a really great job.
He is. We get daily briefings from him every day at 12:30, and those are good. And today, the governor, got on and spoke as well. Spoke very highly of Kansas schools, and we're working hard.
Well, she gave us a great shout out for
Yes.
making the plastic
She
mask.
did. So Mr. Ray's class and those CTE folks, and someone said, well, it didn't say Bruce's name in the paper. Well, Bruce didn't want his name in the paper. He wanted it to say CTE. He did. He thought that was important. And the CTE group is pulled together, and they were here all night long last night. I mean, they worked, didn't they work?
Machines out there.
Machines out there, and people were working and making those. So if folks at home have any of those old transparencies, you know, back from when I was a kid, the overhead transparencies.
I've got to go to Wichita to pick mine up if that's the case, because
Do you have some of those?
I'm the only one that ever uses those still, and so my secretary cleaned out, and I've probably got 200 of them in my office.
Will they let you in, though? Because now.
They will let me in. I just have to let my dean know I'm coming to my office for what purpose, and
That would be great.
so next time I go to Wichita, which I don't know what that is, I can pick
Yeah,
those up
that would
and
be
donate
good.
them.
So
But I
are we
have a
letting
lot of them.
students in our buildings, by the way? I've never,
No.
just
Our-
trying
yes,
to
no,
clear that up.
Yeah, our county health department has said we're not to have students in the buildings. which-
Not even to get things out of their locker, correct?
So not at this point, because we're
Okay.
under a stay-at-home order.
Just,
So.
because there was a lot of confusion out there about that.
Yeah, there really was, and that's, so our elementary kids will get their things because the teachers have cleaned everything out and have gotten it ready when they deliver packets or hand out packets on Monday. So I think our middle school and high school, and if there's something that somebody really needs in a locker, we've encouraged them to call. We've gone and gotten glasses and a coat and some art supplies and those kinds of things. But I would say in the next week, we will have figured out a way to get those delivered, but probably around the mealtime, since that is an
Well, I
essential
hope we
function.
don't end up like Tonganoxie, where their food service person tested positive and they shut the whole food program down.
Well, and Jen and I have visited about that, and so, and with OPA, so we do have a plan B. So if for some reason.
That's good.
So if for some reason, one of our food service workers does contract the virus, then we have Plan B. We'll move to the middle school, and while the high school's being sanitized and cleaned, and we'll prepare meals
Very
with a
good.
different crew out of there. And then if it happens again, hopefully the first crew is recovered. Otherwise, Linda and I are going to be making meals, which we could probably do.
Any other questions? Thank you, Lou. Thank you. Any other question, anyone? If not, would,
Move to approve continuous learning plan.
motion by Jeff,
I'll second that.
second by Lou. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. 4.2 is a resolution to continue to pay our people. I guess really we need to approve this. We don't get a waiver.
That is correct.
Quick question on this aspect. I don't have any problem with this resolution, but I have not read the assurance from the state about funding. Obviously, for us to continue to pay our employees, we have to continue to get funding. We don't have any other source of revenue
We
in
did
order
get
to
our.
do this. So are we good on funding from the state?
We are. We did get
Okay.
our March payment on time, and they did assure us that the payments would be there.
Okay, all right, that's the only question I had.
Any other questions? If not, I'd take a motion to approve this resolution.
Move to approve.
Motion by Jeff,
Second.
second by Lou. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. 4.3 is action on HVAC units. And you should have in your packet, if you've got into you today, the bids.
So the process was it was advertised in the newspaper, and there were a number of people that then called, and then they went to Garfield and to the high school to see the two different areas and the two systems that would need to be replaced. And then they were given out the specs, and then there were two bids that were returned. So two of those bids with carrier units and then with train units. There they are. So we have worked with one of these companies before, not the other. It was very similar in regard to the warranties, the installation, the equipment, those kinds of things. There was a difference. The only difference was that $5,000 in installation for the bid. So, and that's a company we worked with before. That's James, feels comfortable with them. And we've used train equipment before, which is what I've listed as the base bid equipment, so.
Was any local bidders invited
They were invited. One of them got a personal phone call.
and they refused to?
They didn't turn in a bid.
Well, the
They
whole
didn't
part of
show up on
this,
Bid day.
I don't agree with, is paying somebody 10% to write up these bids. And it's an out-of-town company, where they're from Wichita,
They are from Wichita.
out of the area,
Their service.
and then Design Mechanical is out of KC Mo, right? KCK?
No, they're out of Wichita. And so is the other person that bid, this cruise company. They're out of Wichita as well. There were no local bids. So,
And how about the bids? I thought these were supposed to be sealed bids.
well, and they were sealed bids, and then they came on the 16th, which is the day we had canceled school. And so they brought us the two bids that they had, and so we opened them, and this is what, these were the two.
But according to our operating procedure, we're supposed to have a bid opening. This came directly from the big black book. And it says, all bids must be submitted to the clerk in a sealed envelope. Name of the bidder on the outside shall be marked, and it's sent for a public opening. I've asked about that before. We never do that. Since I've been on this board, we've never had a public bid opening that I know of. And it's straight out of there. Shall be open publicly on the stated day and time.
We quote that day and time, don't we?
Yes, we do.
And do they show up?
No, they do not.
Okay, well then, there's no issue. If somebody doesn't show up,
When do we? I never knew there was a public bid opening.
did you look at the bids?
No, we've never shown them.
We always approve sending stuff out for bid.
When did anybody else see the bids?
We just saw them.
Right. And this is the same process.
You
that
don't, we don't, that's not the bid. That's just the answer. How many units? We didn't see how many units they ordered, all this and that, specifics of it.
Oh, well, you have that information available to you if you want it.
Right.
All you gotta do is ask Lori, or you can ask James, and they'll show you.
But why
that
didn't it,
information.
why wasn't it sent to us?
Why would we need it?
Because I would like to know.
Well, you can ask for it. That's not private information.
And I'd be happy to make a copy.
Well, that's funny. I've never heard that before, Jeff,
Heard what before?
that we had public opening of bids.
Yeah, if anybody shows up at the district office, they're open at the time stated. If anybody shows up, then they're invited to the process.
And we have-
Rarely do anybody show up.
But wouldn't that be in our bid packet, that we're gonna have bid opening?
Advertisement?
Yeah,
Has it been there? Have you seen the bid
my understanding, just my understanding, is that the time and date of the bid opening is included with the bid packet. So if a contractor wants to show up to see the bid opening, they can do that.
It was March the 16th.
I've sure never been aware of it.
That's the way it works.
We've done that for equipment in the past, where we've had a bid opening, and that was the only time when we sold a mule last year. That was the only time we had anyone that actually showed up. We had 2 or 3 people that showed up that had made bids on that mule. But in all the equipment that we replaced last year, the HVAC systems that we've replaced this year and last, we've never had anyone show up. So I have those specific proposals. If you'd like to see those, I can make copies for you.
Well, it's a little bit late now. I would just like to have been there for bid opening. I just would like to have seen it. I mean, a lot of times you see it in the paper or written or whatever.
And that's a good point, because I recall a few years ago, I'd go to city commission meetings, and that issue was brought up, and then eventually Debbie started putting all that information in the commissioner's packet, so that would not be an issue anymore.
So, just so I'm aware, are you wanting to know, like in the view, the week ahead of when the bid opening is, when that's gonna be so that you could attend it? Is that what you want to do?
Well, I would just like to see what we're bidding on. What we're bidding on, how many units?
Oh, so you would like
Well,
to
that-
actually see the bid that goes out to the
Yes.
contractors?
Yes.
Okay, that's easy enough.
Yeah,
I
that
can get
makes-
you.
Well,
Yeah, I can get you a copy. of
David and
that.
I are on this committee.
Here.
I've never known anything about this at all. It's all been nothing.
So we had information at I believe the last board meeting that showed a picture of the Garfield School and the units that needed to be
We
replaced.
saw that, but we
Okay.
didn't see any specific,
We saw the number of rooftop units.
Number
and
of
split
units.
units, but
that was all. But nothing was said about when they would be opened or anything about it.
Okay. As far as paying somebody to write these bids, as somebody who's gone through this many times, 10% at this point in time is a pretty reasonable rate. I remember paying architects 8 and 9% 15, 20 years ago to do the same thing. And I'll tell you, as a former superintendent, I wouldn't do a project like this without having somebody write the specs for me. I'm not smart enough to do that. And I will tell you right off, I'm not smart enough to do that kind of stuff and get a good, fair bid. And so to have somebody do it at 10% is a reasonable rate in my mind.
I don't, for the taxpayer, I don't at all, because number one.
Would you write the specs?
I don't need to write specs. What do you do if you need an air conditioner for your home? What do you need? Who do you go to?
It's a lot different spending $800 my home and spending $170,000 for a school district.
Okay, well, let's go back then. Let's go back to, what was it, December, when we had units at the high school go out? We didn't have anybody write anything then. He just went and negotiated and bought. We didn't even get a bid on that because it was split.
Well, it was under the $20,000, and what he did was he got the similar unit that was already on the roof there at the high
That's
school.
true. So
And so this was to replace everything at Garfield.
I know, but then we
with
could
new
probably done the
systems and so-
same thing. You're trying to blow smoke at me. Don't blow smoke.
What's your objective, Roger? I just want to know what your objective is.
I object to the 10%.
Okay, no, I said, what's your objective? I didn't say your objection. What is your objective to the entire process? You object to the 10%. How do you want it handled in the future?
We weren't informed. David and I was on a committee. Nothing was ever said to any of us about this.
We've talked about the 10% several times.
Yes, and I've objected every
You
time.
object every time, that's true. The rest of us haven't.
Well, that's just fine. Can I object again?
Absolutely.
And each time I can. So that's it. That's that.
So,
You haven't answered Jeff's question yet.
just
What is your
to clarify,
objective?
though, he said that the building committee, the facilities committee, was not provided information about these HVAC units. I don't know when it was apparent that we needed them. I mean, we discussed last board meeting about things, but I don't know when it was apparent we needed them. So, I mean, I don't know when that goes out to your committee is what I'm saying. I don't
Well,
know.
it's been for a while because James has talked to me about it. He
Okay.
just said we needed units. He said we got one or two of them down. They're
Okay.
close to down now.
The high
Okay.
school.
It was actually brought up at the board meeting when we were talking about bus barns, and then we switched the bus barn for the needs assessment, and then it was brought up, I said, well, what do we need? And I think you guys mentioned air conditioning and HVAC units at that time. That was like 3 or 4 meetings ago. However, like you said, if you're gonna pay 10% to someone, I'd like a little more detailed information.
And I
What are you
have
putting in?
I have all of that detailed
Well,
information here that I can make
I think part of this
copies.
point is, you know,
I mean, if you need to know what kind of equipment it is
Yeah.
and the models I have all of that here
Well, that's
For
but not
both-
for us to, anybody to study is what
for
I'm saying.
both different bids. Well,
Would you be comfortable if it was over a particular dollar figure, if there is something that is being put out for bid, that we go ahead and in the view, maybe we get a copy of that bid proposal?
and what I'll need to do is check on bid law to make sure I can put all the proposals in the packet before we have selected. I'm not sure with the names of the companies, I can put that out, because then, that was why.
the blind bids.
Right, that was why last week in the view, I just blacked out the 2 bid names. So I'd need to double check because I don't know.
I think you could-
I could do that.
Specifications, what's going out to the bidder for them to fill
I
out.
can do that.
I think you could send us the RFPs.
I can do that.
I'm just saying if it's over a particular dollar figure, if it's warranted, I mean, is there a particular dollar figure, Roger, that you would?
Well, no, I'm just going by over 20,000.
So maybe those can just be put in the view.
That's just,
Just copies of them, just put them in the view whenever they come up. On a weekly basis, just put the standard, just take a copy of it and send it to us. I think that solves that issue.
Because then the RFP will give the date and the time of the bid openings,
It will.
correct?
And then if you want to show up down there at that time, then you have that right to do that. Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? Not then, to move forward, we need a bid to accept a motion to accept this bid.
Well, we need to determine which, they want bid 1 or bid 2.
Well, yeah, the motion will tell us which bid we're going to
Okay,
take.
good.
I would assume that we would
Go with the lower bid.
go with the lowest bid, using, is there a preference over train or carrier,
It's-
other than $3,000?
The cost and,
I have a question.
James
And this is
felt
really a
comfortable
dumb
with the train.
question, and probably someone's going to say something. It reminds me of what's going on Morgan Street on the 1400 block in my neighborhood. I talked to the city engineer and some of the workers, and right now they're going to not work on my section of the street because they don't want the workers out there working together. And it may not be the right time. So I'm just saying, I know this has to be done, but does it have to be done now or?
I did ask about that because I wondered the
No,
same thing.
my question is, does the money have to be spent now? Jeff just asked if we got the money from the state. We did.
We will.
Which
We'll
is fine.
continue to, yes. And we already have money in capital outlay to pay for this as well. So,
This bid acceptance would tie us in at this dollar amount, and they can do the project whenever they want within a time
So
frame.
there's no, so the bid has no time frame on it?
that's, so.
That's fine, that's fine. That's,
Train or carrier to
It's kinda
start with,
crazy.
folks?
I would recommend the train.
Move to approve the train bid for $173,801.10.
For design mechanics. A motion by Jeff to accept the design mechanics bid using the train equipment. Have a
how
second?
much?
173.
$173,801.10.
No, yeah, it's on your sheet down, right, that first column. Yeah.
And as clarification, that includes the high school units as well.
So it's 173,801, is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
That's design mechanics?
That's
Yes.
my motion.
Do we have a second?
So moved.
Is that David second?
Yep.
Motion by Jeff, second by David to accept the design mechanics bid using train equipment for $173,801.10. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign?
No.
No.
Did I hear 3 noes? Yes. Motion carries 4-3. I guess if there's nothing else we can do, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
All right, be safe.